So, plus, I think it's in here. Yeah. So we've got our annual reports, strategic plans. So this is our latest strategic plan. Australian Access Federation and experts in trust and identity is what we do. And we've got our strategic goals, our value proposition, and our strategy. Lots of colourful pictures in here. I'm not that impressed with our colourful pictures, but it means you've got to scroll some more. Oh, they love that stuff. Yeah. So this 5 years, we've got a 5-year strategic plan. And our current goals are transforming Australian research, teaching and learning communities by delivering innovative solutions to provide secure access to high-value digital resources and infrastructure. So it's really targeting our research sector, which is completely opposite to what PALS Federation do. They target their students and the researchers benefit from that. We're completely the opposite. We target our researchers and the students benefit from that work. We've got some guiding principles. Trust and identity solutions are co-designed by a national engaged expert team using international best practices, and our services are underpinned by sustainable business operations. So that's saying that we actually work with our community and get them to help us design the solutions that they need for their services. We also follow the international best practices. So we've been following the ARC blueprint. I just found out yesterday there's a version 3, is it? Or number 3? No, yes. Or whatever they're going to call it. Yeah, so it's a new project that will take the ARC blueprint, which is a framework that we've been following, and we'll obviously follow the newest version and as the new updates come out. And I expect you'll probably get a lot of folk from the AF joining that that working group or team or whatever it is they're going to put. All right. So it's the ARC blueprint one, is it? So this is the ARC blueprint website. This is fairly advanced sort of federation stuff. It's all based on a proxy in the middle. It's got your identity providers at the top, community attributes, so attribute resolvers and stuff that add additional information about users when they log in. There's an authorization piece that can be added to the framework. And at the bottom are all the end user services. So it's a community of services supporting a community of users. It's the aim. They provide both some technical guidelines and a whole raft of policy guidelines. And Pal's going to come up and talk to it.
I can just say that if you look at this, the normal usage of it is you have a big research project or you have a big research area. The ones that using it that is most visible using it today is the Euro HPC centers. They have one common way of doing this together. So that's why. That's what I only want to say.
All right. Our biocommons community in Australia is very keen to move into this sort of infrastructure, but it also requires the Identity Federation to sit underneath it, to provide the identity providers, to provide the service providers that can be part of a community. And all of the processes and policies that REFEDS are defining are also helping. So the REFEDS assurance framework, which Paul will be talking about shortly, certify, the baseline stuff that I spoke about this morning, all underpin this stuff, providing the secure, trusted framework for all this stuff to live within. And identity categories as well, which we'll talk about this afternoon. So going back to our strategic plan. deliver innovative technical solutions, provide secure access to high-value digital resources, co-design nationally engaged expert teams, international best practice, and sustainable business operations. And I think we're ticking the boxes in all those at the moment. I hope we are. And some more, lots of words about. So this is really aimed high-level stuff at the IT directors, at the directors of these research projects, to better understand what we're trying to do and how we're doing it. So more details about innovative solutions, delivering outstanding customer value, building and maintaining a culture of excellence, and enhanced operational excellence. More pictures, more pictures. And the other thing now is that we're a part of our National Research Infrastructure for Australia group. So there's a big raft of organisations that are part of NCRIS, and NCRIS is funded nationally by our government. So we're getting funding from our government to help support this identity uplift, and we also get funding from our subscribers. So we charge our subscribers to participate in our federation. And I was talking to, I can never get your name, Natal, no, yep. This morning about our charging model, and it's because we're a very rich country, we're actually able to charge our participating organisations a lot of money to participate. Smaller countries will struggle to have, probably be impossible to have a similar charging model to what we have. But you could use the same basis. We have a tiered model. Smaller organisations pay less, mid-size pay a bit more, large pay a lot. Or you can go the other way, which is what PAL does, and that's government funded.
Oh, we're not government, we are indirect government funded. We are also charging all home organizations, but we only charge them for the network, the federation, and security in one bunch. And it's based on how big the organization is economically turned around every year. So, for example, a large university that have, say, $1 billion turnaround per year, they pay much more than a small university that has $1 million turnaround per year. They pay a tenth, 1,000 part. So that's how we built our finances model. So the big ones is subsidizing the small ones.
We have a similar model. We base ours on the effective full-time staff size. So big universities with 5,000 staff will pay a lot more than a small university with 1,000 staff. And we also bring in the research income. So we have a look at the research income that's reported by each university. Those have a large research income. They pay more because they're doing much more research. Smaller organisations that have a small research income, they're at the lower end. So we try to make it fair for everyone who participates. We still have a lot of difficulty or struggle with the very, very small organisations and how to make it cost effective for those guys. It's hard to justify paying $10,000 a year for 10 people to authenticate. That's $1,000 a person. That's really hard to justify. So we're still struggling with that, the small end of town. But the small end of town is where a lot of research is happening. Yep. So I'm just showing you these and the BD Wren report because it's just about being open and showing your members, your government, and others that what you're doing in an open, transparent way. And that's part of the baseline stuff as well, just being open and transparent about how you do your operations. So I'm going to hand over to Pal now to talk about the ReFed's assurance framework, and then we'll come back and do the certified stuff when he's completed that. And that may take us through until after lunch. We'll see how we go. So there's no rush to get through this stuff, so just plod through it. There are you, or you're going to? between.
So last year. So last year you saw me talking about different stuff about refits. Things happens in refits every year. I think you, Terry, showed a list of all the working groups you had open last year. There are quite a more few this year, and they are quite interesting because what is the next steps? The base is there. All the base is updated over the last years. How do we get it even better from a scalability perspective? That's the main thing we are talking about now. And we are looking especially at interfederation with eduGAIN, how to make the part from in your federation metadata work together better with eduGAIN. One of those working groups will look into how to extend the XML schema. So you have contact information, organizational information about your federation in your federation data you send up to eduGAIN. Today you have it for entities. You have contact information, admin, technical support, and security contact, for example. We want to add that for the federation too. Now, I won't talk about that today. I will talk about what happened last year. Those two profiles was updated. The framework and the profile was updated. That was ending a 3-year-long work. Let's see if I can. We start with a refit insurance framework. Version 2 was published in December. What differs version 2 to version 1 is primarily that in version 1, we didn't tell everyone what the profile meant. We just said, to be RAF medium, you should do NIST IL2. That didn't work because people don't understand NIST IL2 or ISO 27 something assurance levels or EU ADAS program and so on and so on. So first, some small abbreviations that will be used all over this presentation. Not all abbreviations, but it's very important to know what they mean. RAF is just the framework, the assurance framework. It's Refit Assurance Framework, RAF. CSP is something I don't think you have heard of, but that is your whole credential system, including the whole identity management system at the university. That means everything from the processes around giving out accounts to life cycle handling to where you have your accounts in the bottom, how you use identity proofing, how you log in, and so on and so on. On top of that, you have the IDP. So CSP is the whole shebang. So the CSP stands for Credential Service Provider. Or does it? I don't remember exactly, but CSP is a very, very important thing here. And RP is relying party. That's what we call in the SAML world SP. But in the OIDC world, it's called RP. In the alt text outside the SAML world, it's called RP. So that's why we have used RP. This RAF is technology agnostic, totally technology agnostic. So that's why we didn't use the SAML wordings. A person or a user is also a very important part here, because a user refers to a natural person instead of a legal person. A natural person is, I am a natural person. My organization is a legal person. So it's really about the users, the persons that uses the systems. And that is very important. If we look at draft, then what are we looking into? What are the demand? Where is specifications? It's three areas. Identify uniqueness. Identify uniqueness, we will go into all of these, but identify uniqueness is about reassignment of the identifiers, more or less. We have identity assurance, how well we know that Terry is Terry. That is identity assurance. Attribute assurance is how well do we know that this specific attribute has the correct value for right now for that user. If you take the importance part of this, so attribute assurance is more or less not used. Some research organizations, some research infrastructures want to have it, but normally that is something you don't look at into specific law. But identity assurance or identity uniqueness is extremely important. So now it's some small sample. We use the attribute assurance to transfer the data, what type of assurance you have as a user. And it's self-asserted by the CSP. So it's all about trust. We trust you, me as a federation operator, trust that my member of Uppsala University does this correct. If you're an extreme country like us in Sweden, we don't trust our organization for that. So we have our own assurance framework at the side. You will see some pictures about that later. And we reading through their identity management practice statements, look at that, see if they do things correctly, discuss with them, have meetings with them. And then we assign what assurance level they should have within our federation. And then you can very easily transfer this into RAF assurance framework if you've done this correct. And we did this because we have been part of this process all the way. But other federations like In Common, they don't do assurance at all. They did long way back, but they don't anymore. They went too far, so all the members said, no, we don't want to have this. So they just going for RAF and self-assertion. So assurance in our context is self-asserted by the home organization. That's why trust is so important. And that was service provider trust the federation operator do stuff correctly. The federation operator trusted IDP does things correctly, and the other way around. Therefore, the IDP can trust their service provider can trust the IDP. And see here, an IDP must fulfill REFA's baseline expectations for identity providers to be able to assert her off. That's good. That is the first profile that put that into writing. Certify should have done that too, but it was not finished for that yet. And you are sending out a message in that just say, we support RAF. That means that you are doing baseline expectations for identifiers, more or less. So, uniqueness, identify uniqueness. There are three different things you look into when you're talking about identify uniqueness. Is that the identifier must represent a single person, not two persons, a single person. So no shared accounts, no system accounts, and so on can you send draft for. The next one is that the CSP must be able to contact the end user or the person. What that means is if you have a mail address, that's good enough. But you need to be able to contact them one reason or another. And that you don't need to do that before the account is active or after the account is active. It's only when the account is there running. And the last UN3 there, the identity must not be reassigned. So this is really long term. So mail address is an extremely bad unique identifier. Because what happens if you have name-based mails address, like my address, I have non-name-based, but I also have name-based. So paul.axelsson@sunet.se. And if I got a new boss into the company had the same name, do you think I will keep that mail address, or will the boss take that? Yeah, the boss will take it. Or if I quit, and again there is a new person with the same name coming in a couple of years later, it will be reassigned to that person. So mail address is an extremely bad identifier. So when you're running in M365 or Google as a backend, please remember this. Don't use the mail address as a unique identifier out in the federation. Use something else. So the three first is directly into the name identifiers in SAML, the new subject identifier, and the new pairwise identifier that is used instead of eduPerson principal name and eduPerson target ID. In SAML, and then also the OpenID Connect subs public pairwise for that technology profile. So they are directly mappable to that. We have another story with eduPerson principal name, of course. If you are using, because we have long history with that attributes. If you have fulfill 1, 2, and 3 for eduPerson principal name, you say that in a specific attribute value in the person. If you only fulfills 1 and 2, you can also say that in a specific value. For example, you are reassigning after more than 1 year. So that's a really good way of signal to service providers how you do stuff anyway, even though you may reassign. But I stress, don't use mail address as a unique identifier. That is very important. So if we go into identity assurance, there are two different ways of doing this. Is the hard way the best way? The hard way and the best way is the same, but it means that you need to do quite a lot of work. And there is the risk-based version. That means if you trust it within your organization, you can signal that you trust it within your organization for running, for example, economic systems, student documentation system, student information systems, research information systems, so on and so on. Then you use a local enterprise tag. Most organizations can all that use medium and high in the process based can also use more or less local enterprise, I would say. That was we have seen in Sweden anyway. So there is a car chart for every part of the process based. This car chart is over 5 or 6 pages. You need to figure out how to do stuff. And it covers general requirements. It covers identity evidence. Identity evidence means that how did you go and proceed to know it's the correct person, did you look at identity card or what identity card? Validation, you see that this is a correct identity card. If you higher up your process, you may even check that with the issuing source that is a correct identity card. You don't need to check that. What we do in Sweden, for example, with passport, we can go to a web page and check if this is a valid passport or not. You put in some data from the passport into a form, and you get this is a valid passport or not. You don't get it if it's not valid. They don't say why it's not valid. Just say not valid. You do verification. You do an authenticator binding. Oh, what's an authenticator here? Is it username password? No, it isn't. It's you put into your register, you use this identity card. The identity card is the authenticator. So it's not, or if you're using a national EID, you're putting in, EIDs are electronic IDs. If you have that type ADAS or something like that, I heard that some of your countries has that. And that's perfect for using for this identity switching. Then you just put in that you use this and you have some serial number or something for that. And then then you also have unsupervised remote proofing. That is something you don't need to do. But if you do that, it's quite complex. How do you proof a person remotely in a good way without having anyone sitting at the other end? You have no administrator sitting doing the proofing. It's automatically or later manually checked. It's possible. It's totally possible. For example, we have a routine that reading my passport, the electronic part of passport, it uses also my biometrics in the head to see it's me sitting in front of it. That is unsupervised remote proofing. And it makes it much simpler for us to proof users, especially if they can't come in locally. Or use an EID, then that is not an unsupervised remote proofing because it's authenticated by right, because you know exactly who it is. So, yeah. So there is 3 distinct levels in the process space. It's a low. That means we know that this person is the same person every time. Medium, we know it's a person. If the reason say this is that person, and it's the same person every time. And high is we know this person, we have validated it this person with good confidence, and the same person every time. That's the difference, more or less. So in the car chart, I will not show the car chart here because it's so long. We have 3 different columns, one for each level. And if you do stuff, if as you have in Japan, your assurance profile, map your assurance profile to this, and you are home. If you don't have an assurance profile, you don't need to write an assurance profile. But help the home organization to map this to your normal daily routines at how they do stuff in your part or in your culture. That makes it much easier for the home organizations. This is Federation plus plus. I can say directly, but it will be more and more important to do stuff like this. So quality freshness of attributes. Yeah, we're talking about one attribute. Only one attribute. Edgy person, scoped affiliation, or the other version of it. I can say Terry will put up all the slides somewhere, so they will be available. So we only look at some values, not all values for edgy person assurance. And it's also, here is the caveat. And here's a good thing about it. When we're looking at freshness, that means it's not meaning that if I quit at university and the university doesn't do anything in our identity system and still has me in our identity system, they don't need to update the affiliation attribute because they don't know that that changed. But if they, as soon as my HR system had registered that change, it should reflect out in the attribute. And how far that takes, how long that takes, is we have two values, 1 month or 1 day. Most services doesn't care about 1 day, they care 1 month. It's about when it's changing in your backend system, when do the IDP start to signal this? Very simple. Some organizations say, oh, when the person's moved, we now do like this. Oh, depending on your organization routines, it doesn't depend on how fast it goes. So follow organization routines and do it within 1 day or 1 month of that. It's not harder than that. So here is a graph from Swamit. We are using graph version 1 in this case. We haven't done, but it's the same. We did unsupervised remote proofing. That was a new thing in graph 2 already, and we already follow it. But if we look here, you have different colors. The yellow one is those that only have graph low. Only have graph low. The blue ones is those that have graph low and graph medium. And the green one is those that have graph high or graph low, medium or graph low. So all users in an organization doesn't need to be at the same level. We're talking specific users here. So for example, I am graph high, but my boss is graph medium. So why I am graph high and she's not? Very simple. She doing the local enterprise stuff more or less, but I'm doing stuff within the international community. People need to know that I'm me. So what you see here, if you look at the data here, we're looking at here in 2014 or 2013 it was, we introduced our AL1 level. It took us 10 years to come to almost 100%. 10 years. So don't be discouraged to go slow. It will go slow. You need to find the reasons why you do this. We have killer apps for this, of course. So right here, there. Oh, sorry, there it goes. Right there, we start to demand that every identity provider in our federation had at least low, medium on all users. Rough, medium, low on all users. It was around here. Because then we thought that we have come so far that we can do that. Next step was we have one killer service right here that start to demand RAF medium for all users that logging into that system. And all universities have users logging into that system. So we have service driving this. And here we got the first high demand service. It's about less than a handful from all universities, so they don't do it. So they are using our eduID instead for doing that, doing rough high. That's okay. But as you see, the amount of numbers of rough high is growing. because there is high demand services. So this is a long time work to fix this. Don't try to fix everything at the same time and find killer service to do stuff. Our killer service for RAF Medium was, of course, student information system, where all teachers log in and report the grades. The student-driven, the researchers get positive profit. Most researchers in university are teachers too. Not all, but most. So that's why I'm, as Terry said before, our federation is student-driven. And most other federations are research-driven. It's much easier if you're student-driven. So, RAF multi-factor authentication profile. Oh, published in November, the last year, the updated version. I can say that RAF took 3 years to do, version 2. So really hard work, 1 hour every week, all year round for 3 years. And a lot of writing between that. Hard discussions. Be happy you weren't there. The multi-factor profile is old. Version 1 it's almost 10 years old. It comes from In Common from the beginning. It was very short. It was just a couple of lines what you need to fulfill. The new version is more helpful around that. There is no difference in RAF early MFA version 1 and 1.2 in what we mean, but it's much more helpful. It's much more text in it. So what we demand, and we have done forever, is that must have a combination of at least 2 different distinct types of authentication factors. Normally say 3, but there are 4, and I don't trust the 4th, I can say directly. So traditionally, it's something you have and something you know. More modern is that something you have and something you are. The behavioral thing is an interesting thing, because behavioral is like, you are on this campus right now. Is that a real factor? No, it isn't. But this is how you type on your keyboard. That's behavior also. That could be a real factor. That's a hard one, I can say, but how you move around your mouse. Things like that. But it's much easier to know what you have and what you know, or what you have and what you are. And don't use biometrics as a main login factor, because that is nothing you can change. It can be a second factor. That means you are locking up your YubiKey or your U2F key with a fingerprint. That's okay. And what we are seeing, so that's very important. And you have combined multifactors, that you have a specific hardware and a password at the side, or you have full multifactors, that is, you have a smart card, you need to lock up, get into that with a PIN code. And that PIN code is put into the smart card. That's the difference. Combined and full, and both are okay. Combined is much easier to do than full multifactors. Another thing is that they must be independent. The factors must be independent. That means you cannot reset one of the factors with only the other factor. So you cannot reset. I'm talking resetting here. You cannot reset your password with only your YubiKey or your U2F key. That makes Google unusable for MFA. Because Google, you can always reset your password with your U2F key or your pass key. But you can do in Microsoft world, Apan57, it's totally useful because you can stop that. And there is one more thing. It's totally okay to use your, for example, your password to create your first UTF key. But after that, they must be independent. It's about always knowing the same person logging in. It's also okay to have more than one UTF key or one UTF key and one smart card. That's also okay. But as soon as put in one second factor on, you cannot only use your password to create next second factor. So we're also talking about risk mitigation. It's about mitigates risk around phishing, offline tracking, online guessing, and theft of a single factor. That is what MFA is about. And this is very important. Middleman attacks you cannot do by authentication checks. Middlemans are technology on another level. Some more things is that there is no time constraints. So it's up to you to define how long a single an SSO session can be with a multi-factor. It's totally up to you. It's also possible to, let's see here. Yeah. So SSO is correct, is okay with a multi-factor and single multi-factor in the SSO session. That's totally okay. But there is some important stuff here. You need to be able to single time authentication between IDP and service provider. In SAML world, it's authentication instant. Low-level SAML attributes. So that's an important part. So the service provider can see if this multi-factor login is fresh enough for them. Next is that a service provider must be able to demand a forced authentication, that is invalidate SSO session. And that is very simple. In SAML, you add force auth and equals true. That should work, but doesn't always work. So when the service provider gets the authentication back, they should look at the authentication instant and see that that is fresh. Yeah, that's everything about those two updated profiles. I hope you got a skim here on what it's about.
So how does passwordless authentication fit into the scheme of multi-factor authentication?
So passwordless is something you has. That's one factor to log in. Nothing else.
Well, it's still a single factor.
It's a single factor normally. So passwordless, you hear that? Passwordless. No password is used.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hardware factor some way or another.
Right.
But if you have a passkey with or without using a fingerprint, when you use a passkey without fingerprint, single factor. Passkey with a demand of fingerprint at machine level, that's a multi-factor.
Right.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
I think so.
Hmm?
Yeah. It's just got to look at each way of people doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then determine if it's one or two factors.
Mm-hmm.
It's not obvious because the vendor says it's multi-factor. It might actually not be.
No, so we evaluate, as you do in Japan, evaluate every single method used to see if it's good enough.
And is SMS considered safe anymore?
No.
Take going.
Why? Based on how roaming is done in mobile phones, it's totally possible for whomever to reroute your SMS to their phone. So that's why SMS is never a factor in login.
Even though banks seem to love it.
I know in some countries we don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they removed that in Sweden.
That's still good in Australia.
Yeah. Callback is the same thing. It's not okay either. And you also need to figure out if this hardware factor is good enough. You get a microphone here.
Somewhere an entity
Yeah.
is also there. My bank has an option to only allow me to use ATMs within 100 kilometers of my location.
Yeah, but that is not a factor by itself. If you look at this, that is something that makes a risk-based handling that makes it more true that you are you, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still need the card and I still need the PIN.
Yeah.
But also the fact that I am in Thailand rather than in the Philippines.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, why your phone is in your phone is in Thailand, but you're doing a transaction in the Philippines. That's now suspicious because it means someone else has your card and has your PIN, and it's not you.
So I can tell you what happened for me from Apan57. When I came home, my company's credit card was automatically changed due to that I have been outside for them a safe area. I didn't have any fraud at my card at all, but they wanted to be sure that it was not handled anyway. That happens in the other countries too, but I take it because I was at Apan55, I can say that it may happen even when I go home now. So that's a risk mitigation they do, but that is not a second factor. More questions? Wait, you get the microphone?
Thank you for your quite interesting presentation and very useful. I just want to know some use cases you have experience and behavior. That last one, something the entity does behavior.
They are hard. Behavioral.
Is there any example, live example you have?
Yeah, how you type on your keyboard, how you. One I have seen is how you move in front of your camera.
Eye movement or something.
Yeah, you have the biometrics in how you look, where eyes and everything is, but how you move is also there. So an AI protection. Yeah.
At a distance, I can pick the difference between Terry and Pal walking because I know your gait, and so in a crowd I can spot them, not just because they're tall, mostly because they're tall, but they actually walk a particular way, and you know them well enough to know that it's them.
Yeah, I always limp, for example. So that's type of behavioral. It's also, if you take the credit card company, they look at your usage patterns. So there are quite a lot of those stuff. That's the behavior part. That is the hardest part, the hardest type of factor. So don't use it if you don't must. Always work with what you have and some of the other two. Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll let Terry go on. By the way, stop travel with a tab instead of a full computer. It's much easier.
So I'm going to steal somebody else's slides and do a bit of slide karaoke. This is probably certify old. Yeah. So, yep. And these slides are actually available on the REFED's certified site. So I'm going to try and work my way through them and give attribution to Tom Barton and Hannah Short for actually developing these slides. It shouldn't take too long. There's only 10 slides in this particular thing. So we'll work through them. So an overview of certified. Security is what this is all about, and making sure that people can communicate together. So it's a means to enable coordinated responses to a security incident. So something bad has happened, some security event has happened, certifies about how to coordinate the response to that particular event. And it's in a federated context. So that means we've got service providers in one part of the world having a security event caused by possibly a bad actor from an identity provider in the other part of the world. Or a service provider that's on. Yeah. So it's federated. It's not the same organization. You're dealing across organizational boundaries. You're dealing across national boundaries, which makes things a little bit more complex. That's where Certify is here to help. Does not depend on a centralized authority or governance structure to assign roles and responsibilities for doing so. So there's no centralized body that says you must be doing this part, you must be doing this part. It's all very distributed. It defines a modest set of security protections for federated identities and standard needs for publishing security contact information for them. And Pal did mention that one of the things that we've been working on is defining metadata standards for the publishing of security contact information.
On top of this, there is the eduGAIN Security Incident Handbook you can look at. It's about how to communicate between federations.
I think that's actually referenced here or in this slides. So our party participates and certified by first ensuring that they implement those security protections. So we'll talk about some of those protections shortly. Then coordinating with their federation operator to publish their self-asserted, self-attestation together with their security contact information. So once an IDP or a service provider comes to the federation operator and says, we want to do certify, then the federation operator will add some additional information to their technical federation metadata. So let's read on and find out why we need this. So it's a bit of a what if. Incident spreads through the federation research and education community by a single compromised identity. So there's a bad actor. And all he needs is one credential. He's sitting down here. Mouse can see him. Here he is. There's our bad guy. And he's got an identity within this identity provider down here. So what does that allow him to do? This identity provider will allow him to attack stuff within this federation. So he can attack this service provider here. He can also attack this service provider here. So he can start to be doing bad stuff or getting access that he's not entitled to through a number of service providers this identity federation has access to, or has provided access to that IDP. So bad person in one federation is affecting other federations potentially. And he can jump over to other federations and potentially get access to content from other nations, because he's just got access to one IDP. Because we share everything's shared around the place, it can spread across the whole federation fairly quickly. So what if we could determine the extent of the incident? So how do we, would it be great if we knew how far this bad person had gone, how many services that he'd used inappropriately or even attacked? Could we ensure that the incident-related information is shared confidentially? So the bad guy is identified at the identity provider. Can that identity provider share that this bad identity has been found with the services that have been attacked, and do it in a confidential way? Because when it comes to security, you really want to make it confidential to start with. You don't want everybody knowing that your identity provider has been attacked or compromised initially. You might have to, through your government rules, state that it has occurred, but you want it fairly confidential when you first start to investigate incidents that are related to these types of breaches. Could we alert the Federation members that are involved? So who's actually impacted by this bad actor? What services, what federations? How can we contact, or can we contact members of other federations to work through this incident? And who would take charge of the incident investigation? So these are the sort of things, the questions that Certify will try and answer. So it seems like pretty common sense. Service provider notices some inappropriate usage from a federated user. So somebody that's been happily just accessing data starts doing something bizarre or unusual. The service provider notices that unusual behavior. In a common sense world, they notify the IDP that the bad actor is coming from. The IDP would then identify several compromised accounts, just the one, and the IDP would identify other service providers that have been accessed by that account, and potentially notify, or should notify, other service providers that have been impacted. That's all common sense, but how does that all work? How do we know that the contact information for the IDP that the service provider will want to talk to? How does that IDP troll through his logs to find out what services have been compromised by this entity? And how does that identity provider know who to contact within these other services? There's a whole lot of gaps in a world without Certify. Yeah. So for one, as I said, the service provider probably doesn't know the identity or the contact information for the identity provider, particularly the security contact information. And the service provider may not want to share information generally for fear of reputational damage. That can really knock a service about, or an identity provider about, or an organisation about. We've had a number of incidents in Australia where CIOs have resigned because of security incidents that have occurred and haven't been well maintained or well managed. No. Or the service provider shares sensitive information without confidentiality controls, so they just share everything out about what's happened. That's probably just as bad, sharing too much information about bad stuff that's happened. The IDP lacks the ability to block users or trace their usage, so they haven't done logging or set up their identity provider to be able to do these things, track usage. And again, as I said, this IDP has no way of knowing what the security contacts are at other services that have been impacted by this bad actor. So there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And again, Certify will try and address those issues. So the solution that has come up is that we as a community the Federation community, with all the IDPs and service providers, agree to abide by a common framework wherever we are. So this is a global framework that provides trust. It defines aspects of the trust already built on and placed in our collaborative efforts, like federations and research infrastructure. So it's about bringing people together, having a common framework, and getting that trust agreed to. So Certify has been designed and defined to provide this trust. And it's actually in the name. So Security Incident Response Trust Framework for Federated Identity is what the name of this thing is. I can't remember that acronym's name for the life of me. I keep forgetting it.
So you know why you do those acronyms? Because it should be easy to see. Who cares what it says, what it means?
So we know Certify. Everyone knows Certify. And when I say Certify, we know it's some sort of trust framework that's doing security stuff. You don't need to know what the actual letters stand for. So there's a couple of components to it. It's applying basic operational security protections to your federation entities in line with your organization's policies and priorities. So both service providers and identity providers need to do this stuff. They need to be operationally secure. They need to patch and keep their software up to date. So it makes it harder for the bad actors to infiltrate the software. Manage vulnerabilities. So again, making it harder for the bad guys to get in. Some detection of intrusion. So if you do see the bad guys in, you've found them, you've got onto them as an early stage as possible, and not waiting months and months until they've actually made a real mess of things. And manage access. So ensuring that all user access is right, is set up as identity management stuff. And logging events, logging everything. I've been on to my guys in my federation, my technical guys, but we need to log every little thing that occurs, not just for security, but also for support and maintenance and management of stuff. So if something changes and there's no log event to say who made that change and why they made that change, it's difficult to understand why that change was made. And getting that message across to technical folk who just log the code is very difficult. And logging events, it's not just logging events, it's also being able to troll through those logs and find stuff that's pertinent to an incident. Our logging, we do logging now. The tools that we use to actually access those logs are rubbish. And it's really hard to find something that's gone wrong because there are so many logs from so many different systems, and the searchability of them is just ridiculously hard. And I can on my IT guys continually about that. Hopefully this year they'll do something about that. So that's
AI.
yes, well, that's a possibility too. So that's the first part of it, your basic operational security protections. The next part's about being willing to collaborate in responding to federated security incidents and notify others when you realize an incident is impacting them or has impacted them. And the way that has been defined and how that occurs is by using the traffic light protocols to respect user privacy when communicating with various folk. I'm not sure if these slides actually go too much into the traffic light protocols. It's another set that we'll do probably after lunch. We'll go more into details of the TLP. About the TLP. Oh, no, this version too. So the TLP, if it's green or amber, sorry, green, or if it's clear, so it's the bottom one, then that's public information. If it's green, it can go out to the community. If it's yellow, it's orange, mean it's restricted to the organisation which are involved. But you can share it with anyone. Yeah. And red is just within the people who are involved in the incident. So we've got slides and stuff about traffic light protocols specifics to AAF. We need to be updated to include clear now. It's new, I think. Yeah. These slides themselves are marked TLP clear, which is why I can share them with the community. Rah. Sorry? Yeah, they're made it clear. Yeah. And the final part of doing certify is to publish your security contacts and self-assert a security tag so that others know that you know to trust that this about you. So this is in your metadata. Put a tag in saying you're doing certify as an IDP, as a service provider, and publish your contact information about your security. And in the AIF, we're actually recommending you publish a team security address rather than individuals, because individuals move on and organizations don't tell us when individuals move on. So if we've got security at aaf.edu.au or security.uq.edu.au, that will go to a whole team of people, and it will be addressed a lot quicker than just having an individual. So when a security incident occurs or happens, you conduct your incident investigation using your local procedures. So this isn't overwriting procedures, it's just supplementing and adding to those procedures in the federated context. If you notice that a federated entity outside your organization is impacted by the incident, notify them about it and begin to collaborate with them to manage the incident. So use a traffic light protocol to share that information, to share that, to get that collaboration happening. When you are notified by another certified partner of your involvement in an incident they are investigating, respond to their request in a timely manner. So something happened at a service provider, they want to know that it's being addressed at the identity provider that's potentially got the bad actor, or vice versa. If the service provider's gone rogue, then both ends of the story need to be involved. As Hal said, there's this eduGAIN Security Incident Response Handbook, and that can be used to supplement your normal incident response procedures.
The thing with this security handbook is you can take that for your federation and strip it down a little bit and have that as a security handbook your federation. We have done that. There is also a security team in eduGAIN that is there to help you if there happen things in interfederated use. They are there. They are ready.
Yep, it's a security incident response team. eduGAIN. And finally, there's the Refeds Certified Wiki Space has guidance and material that go into much more detail on this. So the eduGAIN Security Incident Response Handbook. I haven't actually had a good look at this thing yet, but I hope to when I get back home to get right into it. But according to this, it defines roles, responsibilities, and procedures for Federation participants, the Federation operator, and as Carl just said, the eduGAIN security team. So there's roles already defined in this guide or handbook, and it will help you to understand what their responsibilities are and some procedures around that. It's been adopted by the eduGAIN security group and recommended for all parties. So have a look and start using it for your federation and make people aware that this is the way that you do security incident response in your federation. Respects incident response coordination roles where they are already established. The federation operators are default coordinators within their federation. So make sure that your entities, your IDPs and your service providers know that they can always come to your federation, you as a federation operator, to be the coordinators of an incident response. The eduGAIN security team are the coordinators across federations. So they should be involved generally if there's an incident that goes beyond your federation into another federation. And it augments but does not supersede established local policies and procedures. So it's not there to say, don't do it your way, do it our way. It's there to add value to your existing procedures and practices with regards to security. So that's Certify in a nutshell. Last year, Vlad mentioned this the other day, we participated in a Certify event with In Common. They ran 2 security incidents. We were part of one of those security incidents, and they triggered off a number of security alerts.
So a security incident drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not things that happened, but testing their system.
And each of the messages began with training, just to make sure that nobody got really concerned about a real security incident. Because we actually notified people in our board that this was actually occurring, and we sent them on, here's the incident. But training was in front of everything. Make sure that nobody just jumped on, pushed the big button and say it's panic time. And that was to test and to train us in using the traffic light protocol, make sure that when we got the incident, we did an investigation, we then passed our information back to the originator and coordinated to the service providers that were impacted. It was quite successful. We were a bit slow in responding because we actually forgot that we had to respond back to the originator until a few hours after the event had started. So I poked our security guy saying, hey, you need to respond back to where the message came from. And after the training drill, we had a review of how it all went, some feedback from the coordinators and the organisers of this event. And it was really good for us because it really highlighted to us that we hadn't practiced our own security incident response. And we struggled a bit to get through it. But eventually we all came together internally and worked through. So there you go.
I have something after.
So what I'm planning to do in Australia is to run a similar event for our members, to have a security incident response activity, a training thing, and coordinate some messages going out saying this has happened, and see how well our IDPs and our service providers react to this stuff. And prior to that, there's another conference that's coming up, do some training about where to get the contact information, what traffic light protocol is all about, and what Certify is all about. So I'm hoping to do that. And it'd be great if you guys, if you want to participate that. So I'll put a call out to this community to see if you guys want to participate in the AAF version of a certified training event, probably September, October this year. We'll run that. It might be great. It might be a total flop, but it's good to just try this stuff and see how it goes.
So the eduGAIN C cert, it's called now instead of eduGAIN Security Team, does twice a year security check, contact address check. They send out a message to every security contact for every federation in the world, and measure if you reply, how fast you reply. And this is important. This is a drill. It's important drill to see that all the contacts works. So if you see this message, respond ASAP.
Okay, so that's the introduction to Certify. After lunch, we'll be looking at setting up services, or the issues in setting up services in federations, connecting your services out to eduGAIN, and connecting services from eduGAIN into your federations, and the sort of issues that can occur. I'm not actually going to set up a service because that would be really boring watching me type stuff, and I'll probably get it wrong. But we'll just go through some of the issues, and it's going to be more a discussion type forum. I haven't got any slides prepared, so it's from my knowledge, from Pal's knowledge, from Brooke's knowledge of running services in the federation space. So that brings us up to lunchtime, unless there's any questions about Certify. Before we go. Okay. So have a good lunch, and we'll see you all back here at after lunchtime, whenever that is.